Welcome to Unleashed. And don't forget to join us on Patreon for early access and exclusive content. Here are the guys.
Well, I said I wasn't going to do it, but I decided to do it, and now I think I just saw something that takes place in the first 10 minutes of The Rise of Skywalker. My God! That clip that was dropped on Facebook yesterday. Dude.
Oh, my God.
Okay, you said... Okay, let's go into everything. You know all the leaks.
Yes.
Let's get that out of the way. You know all the leaks. I think anybody watching knows you know the leaks. And you had some reservations going into this movie based on those leaks, correct?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, most definitely. It was definitely. I mean, the leaks were dope reading into it, but there was a lot in there that kind of didn't have context. And so after reading it, I was like, well, I kind of like this, but I need a little bit more. And it really had me worried about where the movie was going to go. I thought it was going to kind of leave people wanting more without getting too far into it. And so, yeah, I was, you know, with when they first dropped and we got the kind of the complete picture of the movie, I was not very positive. I was kind of skeptical about it.
And then obviously this drops. I said, I don't know if I want to watch it. And you're like, it restored my faith in everything, including everything like humanity. You were like,
yes,
you are reborn again.
Oh, man. It's like the Star Wars God smiled upon me a week before I go see the movie. Like they knew I needed one last nudge to put me right back where I was pre-Last Jedi. And this clip, that did it for me. When you take it, man, you don't even have to have seen the leaks to just get really giddy about what this movie is going to do for this sequel trilogy. I mean, oh man, I could go on all night, dude. I was so stoked.
Well, let's before we go any further, we'll just say there are spoilers for this scene or the clip that was released. It was a clip that leads into a TV spot or trailer, a Facebook spot, I guess is what they call it now. So we're going to be talking about that in great detail. It starts off, what I'm thinking is the beginning of the movie. Space, Kylo's ship flying through space, and he goes to this it looks like the Sith planet of lightning. This is where GVP gets his lightning force powers from, is this planet. That's what I think. And you know, we kind of see him walking and we hear a familiar voice to start it off. But what caught me right off the bat, and you know, I'm guessing I'm not the only one, is you hear the voice say, "My boy."
Yes. Oh, dude. Yes. That immediately, I was like, wait, what? Your boy?
My
like,
boy?
do you mean your boy like he's your boy, like your friend, your homeboy, or son? Like, wait a minute. You got to explain this, man. Hold on.
It was throwing me off,
I was right
too.
there with you.
Yeah, I was like, my boy. Okay. So is he saying it like, you know, he would say to a young individual like, my boy, come.
Right.
Homeboy, I don't think GVP would do that.
No.
It just doesn't seem like that type. Maybe, though. But then that other one crosses your mind when you're like, well, if he created Anakin, and you know, and is there a bigger plot here than what we are all anticipating?
It very well could be, man. Like again, I'm not gonna go into the leaks, but the way they're setting this up, we could all come out of this movie going, I had no idea. Like you really could, because I mean, there's so much meat on the bone, and there's so many different directions. Even with the leaks taken into consideration, there's so many different ways that they can approach kind of building this and putting the story together, dude. That it's like after seeing this trailer and seeing that clip and kind of understanding where they're taking it, there's so much that can be explained and so much that so many different directions JJ could take it. That it's got me pumped, because now I'm back to kind of square one. Like I'm going into this movie without kind of knowing anything. It's like I know the leaks, but at the same time, I'm super excited to see how everything is going to unfold on screen and what other surprises we'll get, and you know, once the movie drops.
I feel like this was also the one where they're like, if you're on the fence, let's get you off of that fence. Because do you remember this guy named James Earl Jones? Suck it, here he is. And it's like, it doesn't matter, you know, 50 years from now, when that voice, I hear it, is like,
yes,
that is Star Wars to a T.
Yes, it's synonymous with Star Wars all day long, man.
It was
all day long.
I didn't expect to hear that at all.
No. I didn't, and I kind of, and to be honest, again, since we were talking about the trailer, and this was in the trailer, that was a part of the leaks. That one little exchange where you find out that he's going to finally meet him in that way, but it didn't tell you anything about them having any type of dialogue, any conversation, anything like that. So I'm watching it and I'm like, okay, yeah, I know this, but then to hear Palpatine, and then it morphs into Snoke, then it morphs into Val. I was like, holy crap! One line closes that entire loop, and it's not just that it closes the loop, but it sets the stage now for so much more material. Like the Star Wars saga can maybe be at an end, and that's fine. But the thing about this is this sets the table for them to spin this off in all kinds of directions, because it raises so many questions. It's like, okay, well, wait a minute. If Palpatine is saying that he's been in Kylo's mind the whole time, then what else has he told him? What were those conversations like? When did he first realize that this was a thing? Was this something that the Emperor foresaw? Did he see this when as he was going down to shoot in the Return of the Jedi? Like, what? It's so much to ask, man. And I'm just like, dude, this is what I was looking for with this movie, and this is what I've been waiting for Star Wars since before The Last Jedi. It was a movie that had me asking millions of questions as I walk into it, and that's gonna have me asking a million questions when I leave. And I really feel like that's what we're gonna get in this movie. And I'm sorry, but if you can't get hyped for this movie now, like something wrong with you, man.
I was talking
like something's wrong.
I was talking to Rob because I read a few things online, like, don't look at it, it's spoilers, but it's amazing. And Rob was like, I watched it. He's like, it's kind of spoiler, but not really, but it's amazing.
Yes.
And I was like,
yes,
oh, and I wasn't going to, and then we were going to do a video on who dies, but everybody's talking about this thing, and I was like, well, I don't want to be the only one not talking about it. I need to know it. So I went on and I watched it, obviously, and it was not what I expected at all, because it's still like nothing happens, but it's the voices you hear and what the voices are saying, and then the understanding when you go back to The Force Awakens.
Right.
And it's like he kills Han because he knows what he has to do. He kills Han.
Yes.
Because Palpatine made him kill Han. He looked at Vader's helmet and said, "Show me, father. Show me, grandfather." He's talking to Palpatine. Snoke is creating a force bond between Rey and Kylo. No. Now that's not Snoke anymore. That's Palpatine. Which makes me happy too, because it's like you've like you said, you've put aside Snoke. You've been like, this is what Snoke was, nothing, and that explains why he's so powerful. That explains why he's able to manipulate Kylo and almost manipulate Rey, and that's why his death. He probably allowed the death to happen. You know what I mean? Like, he allowed it.
And here's the thing that makes this so amazing to me, is it totally retcons one of the biggest issues I had in The Last Jedi, which was the moment when Kylo Ren kills Snoke. And the fact that Snoke was so arrogant and so cocky about the fact that he knew and could see what was coming, but he didn't see that. And what's so amazing about this is he's seeing this vision and he's realizing what's happening. But when he gets cut with that lightsaber, his face is like, oh, snap. Like, what? And it's like almost in that moment now, just from this one line, you realize that he probably realized in that moment that he got played. Yeah. And he was like, oh, damn. It's just like, wow. And not just played like by Kylo, because that part is kind of obvious, but that if Palpatine was pulling the strings the whole time, then this dude is out here thinking that he's doing Palpatine's bidding, for an example, and then he realizes that he's just a pawn like anything else. And it just, to me, it just solidifies the legacy and the nastiness of Palpatine, man. Like, that's just one evil mofo. Like,
oh, it's so it makes me so happy that he's back. Yeah. And you know what? Dark Rey has that ring that people are like, is that the same ring as Snoke? If it is, now there's that possibility that CVP's on a mission. I can't. This is like, I was already pumped for this movie, but now I'm like, bring it! Come on, man. We're a week away. Just why can't we get it a week early? Wait. Yeah, I wish I was like real press right now. You know.
Tell me about it, man. But the thing, it's so incredible though, because it's like I said, it's so funny because I've been so up and down with this movie, just from hearing the stories, reading the leaks. seeing the fan community and hearing, what people are saying, watching all the stuff, reading all of these stories, listening to people like John Boyega and wondering if, having people like Josh Lucas telling me that he's Jedi Paxis and was the one leaking the movie and all kinds of craziness, man. It's like, I've just been so, like, we talked about this and I was like, just as recent as a week ago, I was saying that I'm more pumped for the fallout of this movie than I am to go see the movie itself. And then this drops, and it's like, when you take that and put it in the context with the everything else, and like I said, you don't even need to know the leaks. Just the fact that if you've seen The Force Awakens, of course, and you've seen The Last Jedi, and you hear that line answers the biggest question everybody's had, aside from who the hell is Rey. Like, that's the only other thing that people were really worried about is, hold on, what does Snoke have to do with this, and how in the heck is Palpatine back? Yeah. And now you answer that question, but you do it in such a way. I mean, I don't know about you, but it was like watching that felt like classic Star Wars, but in a way that it hasn't felt like before. Like, that reminded me of like some Rebels, their, Sith Temple stuff, like that season 2 that or Clone, what was it? Season 2 of Rebels, where Anakin's facing down with Ahsoka and they're in the Sith Temple, like that kind of creepy, like, what am I watching right now? And it's finally happening that we're getting to that point where some of that fantasticness or fantastical, whatever the word is, that dope stuff that we got from Clone Wars and Rebels, where it's like Star Wars, but it's really out there type concepts. We're getting that we got that with that one scene. It's like, you see that now it's almost like it's taking that next step. And to me, that's what the sequel trilogy was missing, was how are you upping the ante? Like, what are you doing to make things more or make things crazier or make the circumstances more dire than the two trilogies we've gotten before that?
See, I think,
go ahead.
No, I think this clip is going to make us appreciate The Last Jedi more.
Yes.
And I think it's going to be, and we've said this, everyone this, people who are sane have said, let's wait till we have the 3 movies in front of us to really decide how it's going to be. And, I've had problems with The Force Awakens, and I had problems with Last Jedi, but it's like, well,
sure,
we haven't finished this, let's finish it. And right away with this clip, it's like, you're going to get it. Like, this what I saw, I was kind of like, oh man, experiencing that in the theater for the first time will be phenomenal. Yes, like, when I watched it, I could smell the popcorn, like it was like, I'm like, this is the moment. These are the moments. And I love the Praetorian Guard scene. Obviously, Force Awakens has so many so many fun scenes in that. But this was the one where I've said so many times, this is a weird comparison maybe, but the Yoda lifting the X-Wing out of Empire Strikes Back. It's not action-packed. It's very subtle. This was like so emotional. I was like so in it, and you get so much about Kylo Ren and how effed up he is because of his grandfather's past,
Yes.
Well, we don't even know. Like, there could be something even bigger at play with Palpatine in all of this, because why would he be inside Kylo Ren's mind? And it goes back to the Force Awakens novelization, I think it was, where Leia's like, Snoke was watching over him.
Exactly. And was messing with him. Yeah, messing with him in the womb and her feeling this dark presence and sensing that. And now we have the context of all of that. It's been SheVP this whole time. And that's what makes this so incredible. And it's definitely, to your point of The Last Jedi, it makes you want to go back and watch the movie again, because it's going to, and it was so funny because there was, the conversation about, would JJ retcon The Last Jedi? Won't he? Is he going to take, the story and put things, and it's like, it truly does, in a weird kind of way, wrap this thing up or bring all of it full circle to a point where when you go back in 5 years from now, or when you show this to somebody who's never seen the trilogy, they might not have any inkling that they didn't really know what they were doing when they started this trilogy out. It may actually pull it off.
I think, and you know what actually makes me optimistic on that is the other day when I think it was a New York Times article came out, And people were pulling individual lines and like, he's retconning, he hates Rian Johnson. And it's like, no, that's not what he said. And I think what he said is the most important thing for this film and for this saga. And it makes you look at this not having a plan in a different light, in a new context. And that he's like, so I wrote this, and then Ryan took it and he did what he wanted to. He basically says this in not so many words. But he did The Force Awakens. Then Rian Johnson's like, well, I'm going to do this. And then J.J. Abrams was like, well, I was really hoping he kind of did that. But he did this. But because he did that, I get to do this now. Like, so he gets to do... So all they're doing is piggybacking off of each other. You know, so maybe they're making up as they go along. But because of that, they get to fuel this extra creativity. But now it's Endgame. Not to compare it to Avengers. But now this is it. So he was like, okay... Let's put it everything on the table now. So I feel like that line, like that interview, even though everybody harped on him and cried about it, was actually a positive for this movie and for this whole saga, in that you take what Rian Johnson did and, you know, you use the word retcon, but I would say maybe just use that as a way to repurpose situations. And you take it and you're like, well, let's explore it. You know, it is definitely a retcon. But I think all of Star Wars has really been retcon.
Without question. And I don't think retcon has to be looked at as necessarily a dirty word. It's you know, it serves the purpose, the changes or hit the direction. We won't even say changes, but the direction that JJ's taking with the movie. So based on what we know so far, it serves the purpose of the sequel trilogy. And if the point is, how do we bring this full circle? How do we close this Skywalker saga? Then if you need to retcon some of the scenes from The Last Jedi in order to make everything connect and make sense, that's totally fine. Because to your point, that's clearly what they did in the original trilogy, because Luke and Leia weren't originally supposed to be brother and sister. No. So I mean, and then when you go back and you watch it now, it's like, okay, this is kind of creeper on some levels when you watch it's like certain scenes, but it's like at the end of the day, it served a purpose, and that purpose made sense. And so it's like, okay, so I don't look at it as when you know, you mentioned retconning a film or a story as a bad thing, as long as whatever changes you're making serve the overall narrative. As long as you're doing that, then I'm cool with that. I mean, same as it's no different than, to me, you know, George Lucas wanting to modify the movies. Although I could do without McClunky, you know, but
McClunky.
I'm gonna find a way to put McClunky in every video from now on, just on a side note, because I think that is so freaking hilarious. But I mean, it's the same. It's the same principle, though. I'm trying to give the audience the full experience of this story. And so from JJ's perspective, as he was sitting down to write this movie, I think his first question was, how the heck do I end this in a way that's not going to make everybody mad? But at the same time, it's like, okay, I have these elements, I have these beats, I have these things that I wanted to touch on in my movie, and then I have what Rian Johnson gave me. How do I marry those two in a way that's going to please the fans and that's going to serve the story? And from what we're seeing, just from this one, even from this one clip alone, it's perfect to me. It's because it answers the question in the simplest way possible, and in a way that is totally plausible when you look at what we've had as an example from the beginning of this saga. This has been who Palpatine has been from day one. So it's not something that somebody can say, oh, well, this is just a convenient plot device. Nah, CVP been cricket from day one. This man has been pulling strings and manipulating people and putting thoughts in people's heads, reading people's minds, and all kinds of craziness since day one. I mean, he is, for all intents and purposes, the most powerful Sith Lord in the galaxy. So you would expect that he's going to be able to do this kind of stuff. So man, I'm just, yes, exactly.
And he continued to be the Phantom Menace after the Phantom, like he just continued to be it. And then even when and the thing that's brilliant about it for me now is, even when we, you know, I think we always kind of suspected, Palpatine, maybe he'll come up, but he was still kind of, they still did it, and he was lurking in there. And I know he wasn't in Trevorrow's script, or Trevorrow claimed it was never part of his plan, but I gotta believe that Abrams always, even I would think Rian Johnson had a feeling that Palpatine would come back in some capacity. And I think the minute they called it the Skywalker Saga, which was after J.J. Abrams was hired to
Yeah.
do this movie. That's when they started calling it.
Right.
Here's a question for you: is Palpatine actually a Skywalker?
Ooh, that would be incredible, but I don't think so.
He's the
I
Ross.
he could be. He could be. I think with it's kind of one of those things maybe where it's a metaphorical thing where you could say from a certain point of view, yes, he is a Skywalker because if he really truly created Anakin and influenced his birth, then technically he's the father of the Skywalkers, but it's more of that metaphorical sense as in terms or as opposed to the in the literal sense. I don't think if we put Palpatine and old Annie on Maury that he's gonna be shocked and appalled if he finds. I don't think it's anything like that from a bloodline standpoint. But no, he's definitely been pulling the strings, and I mean I could see it. It would be crazy if that was a revelation, but I honestly don't think that's the way it's gonna go. I think just the fact that you can now say that Palpatine's been behind this from the beginning. I mean, think about where he was at the end of Return of the Jedi. He's there with his prized pupil getting ready to, he's a couple of minutes or a couple of bad choices away from having the son of his prized apprentice replace his prized apprentice as his new second in command. And one, moment of sentiment, and he's going down the shaft wondering exactly where it all went wrong. But little did we know he was actually like, I have a plan even for this. And then he sets that plan into motion. We find out about bits and pieces of it in the Aftermath trilogy. We find out more about it in the books and the novels. And then we're learning about Snoke. We find out about his Operation Cinder. We find about Resurrection and this whole thing. And now it all comes together as this all being a part of his plan, and his focus this whole time was this kid, Ben Solo, who he's looking at as this creation of all of these people that he absolutely hates. He's the son of Leia Organa, who he can't stand because she's a Skywalker. He's the nephew of Luke Skywalker, the man who thwarted his plan in the first place. I mean, he's Han Solo's son, and he does it. There's no love lost there, even though they didn't really have any direct interaction. But it's like he represents, like, Kylo Ren represents everything that I was gonna call him Snoke. That Palpatine is just hates at this point, even if it wasn't that way before. At this point, you got to think that this man is kind of salty that the Skywalkers keep jacking up his plan, like, and the fact that he's like had this long game where he's been manipulating this kid, twisting his mind, causes him to rail against his uncle, even if it was justifiably so to a degree. It just makes this story so incredible, and it puts Star Wars, for me, back where it should be, in this place where the story is back on par with what we had gotten so far, and it's so wonderful, dude. Like I'm on cloud nine.
I
Man.
couldn't believe it. Does this one? I think this will be our last thought, because there's a lot to digest with this. But we also have a week to go. And maybe tomorrow or Monday or Sunday or Wednesday Wednesday we're getting something with Mandalorian. Who knows what we're getting with that now?
Oh man, right?
I'm not mentally prepared for any of this.
No, it's
but with the dialogue exchanged in this clip, when we hear Snoke, we hear Vader, and we hear Palpatine, like, I was the voices, I am everything you heard. If we take what he's saying at face value, because right now we're assuming that he's telling the truth, that Palpatine is not lying. He could have been lying. He could, but we're going to say he's not. Does that set the stage for Bendemption?
I think it does. I think in that respect, I think when you take into consideration the fact that you had Kylo, and we see him in The Force Awakens, he's so dedicated. He's almost desperate to hear this voice, to hear his grandfather's voice again, to see this vision of the power of the dark side. He's so desperate to see that. And then in the Last Jedi, he's so desperate to please Snoke. I did everything you asked. I'm here. I'm doing all of this stuff. He brings Rey to him and the whole nine, and he destroys Snoke. Thinking that he's striking out on his own, that he's letting old things die, that he's letting the past go, only to realize all this crap that I've been doing from day one was under the wrong impression. Like I've basically been gamed this whole time. And this old man, this old Sith that, again, because I want nothing, as Kylo Ren, according to his words, he wants nothing to do with the Sith, nothing to do with the Jedi. And now you're telling me that all of this is because some crusty old Sith lord's been playing mind games with me for the last 25, 30 years. Like, dude, at that point, if nothing else, I'm gonna be so ticked that I'm ready to go. I mean, I'm ready to go at him. But I think what it does on a deeper level is it helps him to understand just how confused and how lost he really was in this whole situation. It's kind of from the standpoint of him saying to Rey in the Last Jedi, she has no place in the story. I really feel like now that gets projected back onto him, because all of these things that he's been doing, he was doing under the wrong impression. And now it's like, well, wait a minute. What has my purpose been? What has all of this been for? And if, depending on what happens in the movie, if he comes to this point with where he clashes with Palpatine and Palpatine subdues or sways him or whatever the case may be, there's going to be a point where he's going to be at a crossroads to decide what he's going to do. And I think that's going to make him kind of question all of the decisions and everything that he's come to believe to that point. And that could very well be the thing that pushes him to the light, because he's been, resisting it. He said in The Force Awakens, he felt it again. So the light's been pulling at him and calling or calling him his whole life. And he's been vehemently rejecting it. It hasn't been a thing where he's being pulled or seduced by the dark side. He's voluntarily seeking the dark side, despite the fact that he's being pulled to the light, which is what makes him as a character so incredible. And now there's this thing that could possibly swing the pendulum to take him back to the light. And this is the perfect vehicle to do that. So yeah, I think this could definitely lead to redemption.
Yeah, I agree. But the one aspect of it, though, the unknown is Palpatine.
Yeah.
If he's not just gonna come out and be like, "I've been in your head," and because if you were manipulating me, I'd be like really pissed off at you, and I'd say, "Well,"
right.
Which it looks like he is. So what happens after this? After this exchange,
that's the question.
It's got to be something that keeps him dark, or keeps him not, convinced that this was for the best. That's how I feel.
Well, I mean, honestly, if I had to guess, I would say that it's either a deeper revelation that we don't know yet, like something that Palpatine is going to reveal to him that's going to cause him to double down on the dark side, or he's going to get to a point, or there's going to be something that happens where he's forced to remain or stay on the dark side because of his opposition with Rey. Because I think at this point, it's kind of a thing where he's almost determined to prove to himself that he can best this chick, and that he can, that he's strong enough to face her himself, and to prove to himself that he has, the ability to be this dark side person. So it could very well just be that he's just flat out stubborn. But I think it's going to be something where he ends up finding out something from Palpatine, or Palpatine ends up telling him something that makes him go, let me see what this dude's really about. And he's almost back in the same cycle that he was with Snoke, because I think that's where he's comfortable, is he's looking for that guidance. He's that lost kid looking for someone to guide him. He had Luke as a guide, and then Luke went astray on him. And then he had Snoke as a guide until he realized that Snoke really didn't have his best interest, or that Snoke was using him. So he cut Snoke in half. And now, again, he's this guy who's now the supreme leader of the First Order, and really doesn't necessarily have a clue what to do. Like, we don't know how effective of a leader he's been or how equipped he is to be that person. So, Palpatine for him may serve as that next person to kind of cultivate Kylo Ren or to kind of take his powers to the next level. And so he could very well double down on that fact, just believing that Palpatine is the key to him getting whatever it is that he's seeking. So that could definitely be a reason for him to remain on the dark side. And maybe that prolong his redemption. But I just look at it and I just feel like everything is kind of pushing him in that way. What I would love to see is for it to be a dark Rey or Rey herself that causes him to finally make that decision. Like, I want it to be a thing where it's almost a moment of truth thing for Kylo, where it's now or never for him. Like, I don't want it to be kind of this slow progression. I want it to be a thing where it's all right, now you're in the thick of it and it's time for you to reveal who you really are. Are you truly light side, or are you really going to go down this dark path? And that's going to be the really interesting part of it for me, is just learning what part Palpatine plays in that and then seeing how it all ends up, man. Cannot wait.
We got 1 week to wait. I can't wait either.
Oh, man.
This was a fun conversation. We'll wrap it up now. We could go on probably for...
I
mean, it's a minute long, and we could go on for another 2-3 hours. On it.
Yes.
But
it's so much better than what it's been, man. I mean, like, we get a full trailer, and then everybody's dissecting it, talking about how it doesn't really do anything and it doesn't wow anybody. And then you hear all this stuff and all these rumors about reshoots and everything else. It just feels so good to finally get something that has you really talking and like legitimately hyped for this movie. I feel like this is the first thing that has truly drawn out some serious hype for this movie.
I feel like, they know what they have, and they're sprinkling it, like that guy from a couple years ago, like, remember that guy? Yeah, they're sprinkling the salt or whatever on a little bit. All right, Al.
Yes.
Do you want to tell everybody where they can find you? No more Den of Nerds, though. We don't talk about that.
Oh, no, we don't. No. So those checks have bounced one too many times, so I can't even deal with that. But no, you can check me out. Skywalking Productions on Instagram, or hit me up Spotify, TCOIP, the Children of Industrial Prime audio drama, man. Super dope. Come check us out.
And you can follow that on Facebook as well.
Yes,
Facebook. Gotta plug the Facebook.
Instagram. We haven't made it to Twitter yet, but you can check us out. Apple.
Stay away
Apple
from
Plays,
Twitter. That thing is a dumpster fire.
Oh man.
We'll talk. We
though.
probably won't talk. Well, we'll talk, but we won't do a video until after we see this movie. So I hope you enjoy it.
Yes, same here, man.
Send me a message the minute you get out of the theater. Let me know what you think of it.
Oh, of course.
Hey guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. I should have said it off the top. Nobody's around anymore. All right, thanks for watching. And as always, may the force of others be with you.
Hey scumbags, thanks for watching. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up on our video. As always, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Rebel Scum Podcast, for all the latest videos.